What the fuck is the College Football Playoff Committee doing?
Shitting their pants and making the entire country pissed.
Doing the correct thing and making it right.
45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go. Holy cow.
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. We get better and better. Team is Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
Well, let's break that down. I see it both ways, exactly the same way you guys just said it.
Let me rephrase what I said. They're doing what they set out to do by having a 4-team playoff. The rules that are set right now are making a 4-team playoff with the 4 best teams in the country. So they did it correctly.
Absolutely bullshit because they did it completely wrong.
But that's the system that we have right now.
It's all subjective, right? That's what they've made it. It is up to the eye of the committee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with fairness. It has nothing to do with record.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what you do the entire season, apparently.
You know, it's
and
almost
I disagree
like,
with that too. But
so this, I think, is the most controversial year that we've had of the playoffs so far.
Well, the first year was because a lot of people thought that Ohio State didn't deserve to be in. They thought it was either TCU or Baylor because if the Big 12 would have actually given one of them the conference title, but they announced a split because they weren't playing a conference title game then.
Which was also dumb.
Yeah. The committee was basically like, well, if you're not going to give us one conference title winner, then you're not getting in. And then they gave it to Ohio State. Ohio State ended up winning the whole thing, but that does not mean that they deserve to be in. So,
well, start there. I already said it. I sent a text earlier today. I said, I feel like getting the monkey off their back, 27 wins in a row is a long time to go without knowing what a loss feels like. 29 wins in a row. Georgia finally getting that loss. I feel like they're going to steamroll whoever else they play for the next probably 20 games.
I
think they would have won it if they were in the playoff. If we were in the new system, 12-team playoff, Georgia probably steamrolls to another natty.
You took it away from Georgia over 3 points, and you gave it to 2 teams that are far less deserving to be in there.
I agree with that statement a little bit, but a loss is still a loss, and you didn't win your conference. If you didn't win your conference, I don't see how you get in the playoff.
And that's another one of the metrics, though, is...
It's happened before when you don't get a chance to play in your conference playoff. Like when we've had 2 Big Ten teams or when we've had 2 SEC teams, it's because one of those 2 teams that got into the playoff didn't get to play in their conference tournament or conference championship game. Am I wrong?
Well, no, when Alabama and Georgia made the playoff, they played each other in the SEC title game.
Yeah.
They did. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I stand corrected. That's not the way it was.
Ohio State has gotten in by not making the playoff. Yeah, like last year.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
When you look at it, you say Michigan deserves to be there. Easy.
Yes.
Washington deserves to be there.
Yep.
Easy. Texas, I think
horseshit.
You can make a good argument that they deserve to be there.
Agree.
Lost to Oklahoma and struggled hard against K-State.
You lost in a duel, a shootout to Oklahoma. Oklahoma at the time was still undefeated. They were still riding high. Oklahoma lost some people and then, went on to lose, I think, 3 or 4 more games.
They only lost 2 this year.
2 more games after that. I think Texas is a really good team. In the eye test, when you just look at, like, when I watched all these teams play this last weekend, I'd have Florida State on the outside, too.
Yep.
I'd have Florida State on the outside. Louisville, it's a great story. They didn't play that many tough teams this year. They had 1 really good win over Notre Dame. Outside of that, Louisville's kind of a fugazi top 15 team. And then you look at...
I don't know. You thought for sure that they were going to kick the shit out of Florida State going into that game.
Yeah, well, I was also wasted when I said that.
He also thought we were going to score 30 against Iowa. So
yeah.
Okay.
That's a fair
point.
I've never said anything wrong before.
I don't think that Texas or Alabama have the kind of team where you can say that even in a 3-game, like if they play Georgia 3 times, they lose that at least 2 times. Either team.
I think Alabama's playing the best in the entire country right now. I think they're going to win the whole thing.
I don't know about that.
No.
In fact,
I think Michigan beats them in the first game.
I was just going to say the same thing.
No
if
way.
we're making picks right now, I think Michigan wins that first round, and I think Michigan wins it all.
I will never. I've told a couple people this morning. This isn't 100% as far as a win factor, but I will never bet against Nick Saban when he has multiple weeks to prepare
Time
for
to
you.
prepare, yeah.
So, as much as we hate Jim Harbaugh, he's still a great coach as well.
You can kind of say the same thing about Harbaugh, though.
I literally said that about, you mean about the multiple weeks?
Giving him
yeah,
time,
but he's going against Nick Saban, the best coach of all time. That's a different conversation.
I get you.
I will never bet against Nick Saban when he has multiple weeks to prepare for you.
I also think Washington absolutely boat races Texas.
And I think Texas is going to win that game.
No, I disagree with you. I think it's going to be a 59 to 57 type game. Neither one of their defenses is going to stop either side. They're going to, first team to score 55 is probably going to get there. But I think you're going to see,
especially when Texas opens as a 4.5-point favorite.
You're going to see almost the same type of game between Michigan and Alabama that you just witnessed in the SEC championship game. Except for I think Michigan and the offensive line that Michigan is going to bring into that game is something that Alabama hasn't played all year long.
That's not true because one of their best offensive linemen is not playing.
Well, he might never play again.
Exactly. And they've had a couple of, and granted they could get healthy, but they've had a couple of other injuries on that offensive line. Their offensive line is not what they have been all season.
Fair.
But also, if you look at how Michigan's offense has fared against the best defenses that they played, and Alabama's probably the best defense that they're going to play this year. So, I don't know. I mean, hell, against Iowa, they scored 2 touchdowns in the entire game, and both those touchdown drives were for 11 total yards.
That's fair.
Iowa's defense is really fucking good.
Alabama's is better. I feel like Iowa's, Penn State's, and Ohio State's, and Alabama's, you can kind of put them all in the same category.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is from a defensive standpoint, I don't think this is something that Michigan's offense is going to come into worried about anything. Because they've been battle tested.
Yeah.
Like they've played the dudes now. They've done it. It's not like when we were talking about Michigan playing Nebraska and they had played fucking nobody at that point. Rutgers was the best team they played. They've now run the gauntlet and they've gotten there and they've proven it. I'm a believer in Michigan now. I would have to pick Michigan over Alabama in that game, and I would probably take Washington. I think the Michael Penix edge is just a little bit there just because of his age. I think Texas is still a year away, but I don't know.
One of my biggest problems with the discourse all day today was I can hear you if you want to say that the system is flawed, this and that, whatever. But to me, it's 2 different conversations. If you want to talk about how bad the system is, fine, and I'll probably agree with you.
Which is also why it's changing.
It's why it's changing.
It's going to 12 teams. It takes care of all the bitching that's going on this year.
I'm basing my opinion on the 4 teams that they put in the playoff for this year based off of the rules that they currently have for this system that we have today, right now, and I think that they got it right. I said it this morning that I think that they put 4 of the 5 best teams in the country in the playoff. I think that 5th team is Georgia still, just because. And I know a lot of people can say you shouldn't punish Florida State for losing one guy, but he's a Heisman Trophy contender. He's kind of more than just one guy. So, sorry, I do punish you. And without Jordan Travis, you're not one of the 5 best teams in the country.
So do you disagree that the other 80 people on that roster got hard fucked by the committee?
I'm not going to disagree with you, no. But I don't think that they deserve to be in the playoff based off of getting the 4 best teams in the playoff. I can't argue with that. I agree. But that's the deal that you have. Like,
it's hard for me to sit here and say that you can't look at Florida, or that you can look at Florida State and say, well, they're not the best team in the country, because we don't know, because nobody's beat them.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple teams that have come reasonably close to beating them, but nobody's beat them. That, I think, is the biggest difference, because you look at Alabama, they do have a loss. You look at Texas, they do have a loss. You look at a lot of the other teams that you would say are top echelon teams. I'd still count Oregon in there. I think they had a weird one-off type game in the Pac-12 championship, and they looked terrible.
Yeah.
That was weird. We watched that game. We were like, what the fuck is happening right now?
And they only looked terrible long enough to lose the game. Like, they still had some moments of greatness in that game.
Yes. They actually looked good in the 3rd quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, we were talking, it was like, are they going to come back and cover this
exactly
ridiculous spread for a second?
Yeah.
as far as looking at it, it's like I get the fairness factor and for the kids and whatever, but the whole point of the playoff is to get the best team in college football the chance to win the national championship.
I cannot say that I don't think Florida State still beats a Texas or an Alabama. I just don't.
I don't see how they do, though. They don't have the offensive firepower to stay in those games.
I think if Florida State's in the playoff and they're number 4 going up against Michigan, it's a double-digit point spread. Right now, it's a 1.5 point game.
I don't see it. Their defense is incredible.
Their defense is great. With Jordan Travis, they could have had a good argument to be the number 1 team in the country.
For sure.
Without him,
I think they're
not close.
I think they would have been number 2 in the playoff.
That's what I'm saying. They at least had an argument to be number 1 team in the country.
Yeah. I think with the body of work Michigan put together in their last 4 games, especially without Harbaugh, with the exception of the Big Ten championship game, you hang 26 on Iowa, just like I realized Penn State did that earlier in the season, but that Iowa defense was playing top-notch at the end of the year. You look at what they did to Ohio State, you can't argue they're not the number 1 team in the country when they beat, 2 of the top 6 defenses in the last 2 weeks. Well,
and the other thing is a lot of people want to bring up, speaking of the first year with Ohio State making the playoff with their third-string quarterback, with Cardell Jones in and everything else, and they're like, well, why can they make it in with their third-string quarterback and Florida State? Yeah, Ohio State went to the Big Ten title game with their third-string quarterback and won 56-0.
Yeah.
Like, they said, we got our third-string guy in, and we're still going to beat the shit out of you.
It wasn't 13-6.
Florida State,
whatever the fuck that
16-6, yeah. Like, struggled to beat Louisville.
Yeah.
With their third-string quarterback.
With
so it was not
coach.
The same. It's not the same situation that Ohio State had 10 years ago.
And the ACC is not the strength that it has been. Even
no.
When you look at how down the ACC is altogether this year, that also had to play a factor in how they were looking at what Florida State's, just the resume in general. And you have to know that Boston College game stuck to people's minds a little bit. I don't know. I don't hate the way that it shook out. I would have rather seen Georgia than Alabama probably, just because I do think overall they're the better team. And like Matt said, you played that Georgia-Alabama game 3 times. Georgia wins 2 out of those 3. At the same time,
I don't know if I can say that for certain.
At the same time, Alabama won last.
Well, I'm just saying that over the last 3 games that they played, I guess, because Georgia's been the better team. And Georgia, just for my eye test, has been the better team this whole year.
Well, that's why I also, before the Final Four came out, I said what I think it should be was Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Georgia. So that would be Texas and Florida State were both out. Because I still think Alabama and Georgia are 2 of the 4 best teams in the country. That's why, since they put Texas in there, I can see it, whatever, fine. People want to yell and scream about 1 fucking game rather than the entire season. That's why I say I think that they got 4 of the 5 best teams in the playoff. And unfortunately, there's only 4 spots. So that's just the way
How
it goes.
good would it be, though, this year if there were 12?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be phenomenal.
Did you see the
Oregon
layout?
and
It'd be
Ohio
phenomenal.
State still being
Did
in
you
there?
see the layout of what the matchups were going to be?
No, I didn't see it.
Let me see. I have it saved on my phone here. So first round, granted, this first game, not written. Florida State versus Liberty. Cool, whatever. Because it's the top 6 conference champions and then the 6 at-large spots.
Yeah.
The next game would be Missouri versus Oregon. That game would be phenomenal.
I'm here for it.
Ole Miss and Georgia. Good game. Penn State, Ohio State.
Ole Miss and Georgia,
Okay.
I don't know about that.
And then, so like the winner of Penn State, Ohio State would play Washington. The winner of Ole Miss, Georgia would play Texas. The winner of Missouri, Oregon would play Michigan. And the winner of Florida State, Liberty would play Alabama.
I like that.
Thank you.
So it's just a little extra. It's just a little extra fuck you for the last year of the 14 playoff, essentially.
And
I don't get why people are so up in arms about it. Yeah, sure, whatever. Oh,
I can
sucks
see
for the
it,
kids,
but
who does it suck worse for? The 81 kids that are left on that roster, or the fucking quarterback who was having a rock star season and went down?
Both. It sucks for both
it
of them.
does. It sucks for both.
They
of them.
both got
get it.
entirely fucked. Only one of them out of the 82 that you just mentioned should actually be upset today. The other 81 should still have a shot to play for something.
Well, and here's my
They
big.
do. They get a bowl game.
Moving forward, Here's my big hand. They're playing Georgia in the bowl game.
They
so
get
they're-
Yeah, you're going to see them get anally rendered, and then you're going to be like, yep, nope, you're right. That was a good call.
But here's my
I'll feel better about it if that
You're
happens.
giving Kirby Smart in his fucking pregame.
Although there
Antics.
could be a situation where a lot of those Georgia guys are like, yeah, I'm going to the pros, so I'm not playing in this game. So you never know. It might actually be closer than expected. But here's my thing. All the
What,
coverage-
you better
20-point
hope that
game
Florida
instead
State
of
doesn't win
30-point
that game.
They won't.
But it'd be like Central Florida winning that game against Auburn when they didn't go to the playoff. Yeah, none of the Auburn players gave a shit about that game, and half of them didn't play. Who the fuck cares?
So now that we've
Still
seen
not a
it,
good look.
now that we've seen the bracket,
But that's my point. Like, okay, yell and scream all you want to. Ultimately, shut the fuck up and look at what the bracket is. You're gonna tell me that those games aren't intriguing?
they're going to be awesome games.
So cool. We got two really good games and potentially a really good title game, at least as far as matchup goes. Sign me up. I'm in.
Well, what we're going to end up seeing in the title game is a really good offense against a pretty good offense and a mediocre defense against a supreme defense. Regardless of who wins that Michigan-Alabama game, I'm picking them to come out as the daddy. I'm picking Michigan. Who are you guys taking?
I got Alabama, Texas, and I got Alabama winning.
I like Washington this year.
Washington all the way. Rock a Pac-12 natty as it expires. That's incredible.
That's kind of poetic.
Yeah.
Wave goodbye.
Chalk up another one for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and the Big Ten welcomes the national champion.
Yep.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.